Disclaimer again, racism, sexism, homophobia, ageism. Um, yeah, okay. Chapter 3, a little about demographics. What of the future? What do these remarkably low rates portend? Before we begin to answer these questions directly, a word should be said here about the social science of demography and the ability of demographers to speculate accurately about the future. I offer two thoughts. First, although they have made some big mistakes about certain sorts of things, demographers know more about the future than other social scientists. Second, they know a great deal. That's just like coming full circle with the first thing. Like the definition is the definition or something. Maybe I butchered what I was trying to say. Economists, who usually cannot agree on the interpretations of the past nor on the meanings of what is happening now, are often happy to tell you what will happen in the future. Such predictions are frequently widely out of date before the ink spray on the computer print frequently widely out of date. Such predictions are frequently widely out of date before the ink spray on the computer print has dried out. They fall prey to the first unexpected economic event, of which there are many: booms, recessions, depressions, inflations, deflations, stagflation, etc. You may bet on it. Economists don't know what will happen next. Political scientists do make predictions. They will tell you the country is moving to the right, or to the center, or to the left. They better move left. They will tell you that candidate Jones is a shoo-in to be president in 1988. Then a recession, a war, a major gaffe, or a national scandal pops up. And the same or the other political scientists will tell you perhaps the country isn't moving to the right. And anyway, good old Jones has been touched by a scandal, is gaffe prone, and turned out to be a turkey on the campaign trail. It's Smith who's a shoo-in, except of course if the economic forecasts by economists about inflation don't hold up, or if Smith proves to be a gaffer too, believe me, people in politics, political scientists, pundits, practitioners know even less about the future than economists. You can depend on it. In this social science land of the blind, the one-eyed demographer is king, for demographers know some things with some certainty about the future. The root of their special knowledge is not hard to divine. Yeah, it says divine, not define, by the way. I didn't misspell that. Think, they are usually dealing with numbers of people, and those people are already alive. Thus, if 1,000 babies are born in the U.S. in 1987, we pretty much know how many native-born 10-year-old children there will be in the country 10 years later. In 1997, the answer is about 984, after accounting for infant and child mortality. Knowing these sorts of rates, we can do some fairly precise national planning about the numbers of schools, classrooms, and teachers that will be required in 1997. Try asking an economist about the inflation rate in 1997. Ask a political scientist what percentage of the electorate will self-identify as Democrats in 1997. Similarly, we know American birth rates in 1987. We also pretty much know how many native-born young adults aged 20 there will be in the U.S. in 2007. If we make some plausible adjustments for potential immigration and add in the prior 2 decades worth of births, we know roughly what the total number of young adults aged 20 to 40 will be in the U.S. in 2007, by the way. We then know in rough measure another critical fact: how many potential mothers will there be in the country at that time? Demographers know some things about the future and how the world works. They know as They know, as has been mentioned, that if two parents, on average, don't bear and raise two children to reproductive age, then over a period of time, and with all other things being equal, a population will decline. Two parents must be replaced by two children. That is not my law. It is, depending on your preference, God's law, a law of nature, or a law of arithmetic. Two must yield two, whether you are a believer or an atheist. So, yeah, the GOP actually pretty much straight up says that. It's God's law or the law of nature. It's pretty fucked up. Alas, the wonder and simplicity of demographic futurology begins to end at about this point. Demographers surely don't know everything about the future, and the rest of what they do know can get complex. First, the rate needed to keep a population in balance over an extended period of time is not simply two children flat. In modern nations, it is approximately 2.1. Why the 0.1? Two reasons. Because some children don't survive to adulthood. To adulthood. When in theory, at least, they too could become parents and help continue the perpetual motion of the human species. And because there are somewhat more boys than baby girls born, and fertility measurements almost always concern females, not males. There are about 105 males born per 100 female. To achieve an exact replacement rate of females at that ratio would require 2.05 total fertility rate. The other 0.5, making up 2.1, comes from the infant and child mortality rates mentioned above. Interesting fact, one key reason demographers measure fertility in women and not in men is that maternity is a known fact ascribable to a specific woman. Establishing paternity, on the other hand, may be questionable. Accordingly, the reader will mostly find rates for women in this book. Also, they kind of just expect the mother instinct, and so that draws in the, I don't know, for the most part, when it comes to like sperm banks and like wanting a certain amount of things, it's all about like keeping the seed safe, and it's just gross like that. Yeah. The second complicated factor concerns the matter of immigration. We don't know how many immigrants the U.S. will acquire in the future, and with the past record of illegal immigration, we don't even know exactly how many are here now. In theory, the below replacement fertility rate can be made up a high immigration rate. In practice, the numbers don't really work out the way these days. The work doesn't work out these days. Thus, in a more or less ethnically homogeneous nations of Western Europe or Japan, any extensive immigration is seriously frowned upon. France now accepts only about 30 to 35,000 immigrants per year, and even at that low level, it has become a major and festering political issue. Political bonuses are going to those Poles who not only want to cut immigration, but actually propose to send home many North African emigres who arrived in France in early years. Man, I hope that wasn't a slur. Jesus Christ. Italy takes in another 4,000 immigrants a year. England in the last decade has had a net loss, although in the last years the numbers have turned positive. West Germany and some other Western European nations pay immigrants to leave and go back to where they came from. Jeez, yeah. Usually in Turkey. Japan has about zero net immigration. The U.S. is not ethnically homogeneous. In theory, it would be easier for us than the Europeans to take in enough immigrants to wipe out the birth rate. In fact, we take in more legal immigrants than other nations combined. But Statue of Liberty rhetoric notwithstanding, there has always been substantial public resistance to high immigration rates in the U.S. These days, too, there is plenty of resistance, and we do not take in nearly enough immigrants, legal or illegal. to yield the functional equivalent of the 2.1 replacement TFR over the long term, nor are we likely in the future. This will be discussed at greater lengths in later chapters. So that's weird. Just using immigration to bust up the numbers that of the demographics that they want, instead of just, oh, you're here to like have a home and like be safe. Oh wow, no, you pumped up enough babies for us. Okay, get out of here. Like, how twisted. Like, maybe it makes sense in some like cold logical just how the system functions, but it's still really kind of mean. I'm underselling that, obviously. um if there was doubt that immigration could not put us on a positive demographic track, and there shouldn't have been for reasons to be explained in a moment, there should be little doubt about it now. The Immigration and Reform Act of 1986 was passed by Congress and signed by the President in late 1986. The bill imposes stiff punitive employer sanctions, and those who hire illegal immigrants, previously only the illegal immigrants, not the employer, was punished. Now, after warnings and previous fines and violations, the employer ultimately can be fined up to $10,000 for each illegal immigrant hired, and face a prison term as well. The bill also has an illegal immigrant amnesty provision, but only for those illegals who arrived prior to 1982. So, obviously, I've taken pictures of this and came across it when I read this a little bit before, but I never really knew that we fine the person who hires the illegal person. You know, obviously that's good that we find the person that's hiring them, because it just seems kind of like this person needs a job and they want it. So, you know, to persecute the person wanting the job is a little fucked up. The new law means that it most likely will become much more difficult for illegals to get a job in the U.S., and jobs have been the basic magnet that drew most illegals here. Although there remains an argument about just how effective that law may be, most experts believe surely will curtail some amount of illegal immigrants, likely a great deal of it over time, as kinks and loopholes are worked out and fraudulent practices of avoidance are dealt with. Perhaps more important for our purposes here is to note that in recent years the extent of illegal immigration has been grossly overstated in the popular press. How so? To begin, there is an inherent statistical morass involved in the data, even on the legal side, involving refugees, asylees, marriages to American citizens, country quotas, the future impact of the daisy chain effect, which can increase immigration via the reunification of families of legal immigrants who will become citizens, and what is rarely thought about, immigration from the U.S., which the Census Bureau estimates at 160,000 per year. Moreover, the statistical methodology and practice of the Immigration and Naturalization Services, INS, has become under sharp criticism. For good reason. A National Research Council / National Academy of Sciences NRC/NAS panel entitled their 1985 study Immigration Statistics, A Story of Neglect. In the last few years, to be fair, INS has shown important improvement in their statistical procedures. Yeah.